Hi, we're back looking at New Answers, lesson number 23. And the question they present is, hasn't evolution been proven true? Well, if you look at our modern day textbooks and, not just science, but some history, even in some math books, they just present evolution as a fact that nothing has changed. It's just, it is exactly what the evolutionists say. However, that's not exactly true. So the first thing, as we always need to do, is kind of define our terms. And so evolutionists say evolution is simply means change. It's just change. And I think they do that to try to soften it and confuse people. And because there is change that occurs in the world, there's change that occurs in different species. However, we need to define that a little more. Because in reality, it is a very certain or specific kind of change, okay? Evolution is now accepted to mean the change of non-living chemicals into simple life forms, into more complex life forms, and then finally into humans. We are told the change occurred over millions of years, and the dominant mechanism that is supposed to have driven it is natural selection coupled with mutations. Evolutionists being, they also have extended evolution to non-living things. Almost everything is said to have evolved. The solar system, stars, the universe, social and legal systems, everything is said to be some type of product of evolution. We'll go to see that they have three very specific forms of evolution, one being stellar evolution, one being chemical evolution, and one being biological evolution, and we'll talk about those a little bit. The story of evolution, however, no matter how you lay it out, leaves absolutely no room for a supernatural creator. There's nothing in there that says, oh, there could be a God who created anything. It's all based on just chance and random events that have spurred, as they said, the change of non-living chemicals into simple life forms, into more complex life forms, and finally into humans. So again, no room for a supernatural creator. The evolutionary processes are purely naturalistic. The implication is very revealing. Evolution means no God whatsoever, okay? The book says, no wonder molecules demand evolution is attracted to so many, for it allows them to live their lives as they please. This is called relative morality, okay? It would be nice. You can just do whatever you want because there's no God, there's no consequences, there's no anything, right? So the question that we have to ask ourselves then is, does the Bible teach evolution? Very simple answer is no, not even close, right? Everything, the Bible basically teaches everything was created by God, spoken into existence. There's absolutely no time for evolution because God created everything in 6 literal days. However, there's some arguments that are made based on Genesis 1, okay? And what they say is that Genesis 1 is a simplified account of evolution. They're saying it's kind of the same thing, but Genesis just kind of scrunched it down to make it easier to read or for easier to understand. But there's some big problems with that, and there's a chart in your book on pages 284, 285 that gives you a list of evolution and a list of creation based on Genesis, and goes back and forth. The first one in there says evolution shows that the sun was there before the earth, where Genesis clearly states that the earth was there before the sun. And so they highlight several of these different problems that would make it impossible to be a simplified version of the events because they're completely different. Okay? The order of events is different. The Genesis account of creation bears absolutely no relation to the evolutionary account of origins of the world, okay? Another argument they make is there's a difference between the words make and the words create in Hebrew. In Hebrew, asa means make and bara means create. And if you look in Genesis and you pull out the old Hebrew and you start digging into it, there are 2 different words that are used in there. However, if you use it in context, as you're supposed to do, and look at what was written and how it was written, those words can be used interchangeably in the Bible. And so there's no way to use that as a overriding, created some things, but other things were made possibly through a process of time. It just doesn't fit based in context. So that's another erroneous error of evolutionists. So let's go back and look at the different types of evolution. Stellar evolution, okay, is basically the Big Bang, okay? Stellar evolution is the Big Bang. It's where, the Earth just kind of exploded out of nothing, and, it says, in the beginning, nothing became something and exploded. Page 287 of your book, it says, however, we accept that the universe and everything in it came from nothing, and also from nowhere, then we have to follow this to its logical conclusion. This means that not only is all the physical material of the universe the product of nothing, but also other things. For example, we are forced to accept that nothing, which has no mind, no morals, and no conscience, created reason and logic, understanding and comprehension, complex ethical codes and legal systems, a sense of right and wrong, art, music, drama, comedy, literature, and dance, and belief systems that include God. Those are just a few of the philosophical implications of the Big Bang hypothesis. Then they have chemical evolution, okay? And chemical evolution is their explanation of the origin of life. It's living organisms evolved from non-living chemicals. If you look in your book, page 289, it says, it says the problems outlined above show that far from creating life in the laboratory, the chemical evolutionists have not shown that living systems arose by chance from non-living chemicals. Furthermore, the vast amount of information contained in the nucleus of a living cell shows that living systems could not have evolved from non-living chemicals. The only explanation for the existence of living systems is that they must have been created. And it truly amazes me on a regular basis how the human cell, most living creatures, to include plants and other animals, humans, is so complex that people can believe that it just happened out of nothing. But, that's my opinion. Lastly, we want to talk about the biological evolution. And this is basically saying that everything came from a common ancestor, from common descents. And they try to say this by looking at comparative anatomy, okay? That's the name given to the science that deals with the structure of animals. And when they compare the anatomy of one kind of animal with another, it's supposed to prove that they're descent from a common ancestor. We have a large leg bone, so do other animals. We must all come from some past unknown animal that all had large leg bones. And then they put this forward as very strong evidence of evolution. Everybody has large, leg bones, so it proves evolution. Well, that's certainly not the case. It says in your book that we have to realize that the entire line of reasoning by evolutionists is based upon a single assumption, that the degree of similarity between organisms indicates the degree of supposed relationship of said organisms. In fact, there's another logical reason why things may look alike. Creation by an intelligent designer using a common blueprint. This is why it is important for us to understand which worldview we are using to interpret the evidence, or which worldview is being used to interpret the evidence that you're gathering and looking at and researching, okay? Make sure you're getting the right information. Lastly, Charles Darwin proposed a gradual evolution of life forms over a long period of time. If this has happened, you would expect to find this gradual evolution of one kind of life form into another kind to be recorded in the fossil record. However, this evolutionary account of one kind of life form changing to another kind is not recorded in the fossils. We can't find it anywhere. There are many instances where variations within a kind are found. For example, different varieties of elephants or dinosaurs, etc. But there are no examples of in-between kinds. Both evolution and creationists agree that the intermediate transitional forms expected on the basis of a slow, gradual change of one kind of creature into another kind is not found fossilized in the sedimentary rocks. It's not there. We can't find it. Both creationists and evolutionists will say that. In other words, the transitional forms are missing, hence the term missing links. And then they push that off as missing links are just normal. Oh, it's a missing link, and it solves the problem of filling in this gap, and we can't find what we say should be there. So it goes to show you really need to make sure you're paying attention to what needs to happen, okay? Finally, let's close with this. We have seen that the Bible does not teach evolution. There is no demonstrable evidence for the Big Bang, and chemical evolution has failed miserably in spite of evolutionists' attempt to create living systems in the laboratory. Similarities in the structures found in living systems can be interpreted better as evidence for a common design rather than a common ancestor. In spite of billions of fossils being found, there are no unquestionable fossils that show a transition between any of the major life forms. They're just not there. Natural selection, done in the wild, and artificial selection, as done by breeders, produce enormous varieties within the different kind of plants and animals. It has proved an impossible feat, however, to change one kind of creature into a different kind of plant or animal. The so-called kind barrier has never been crossed. Such evolution has never been observed. This has been pointed out by none other than evolutionary professor Richard Dawkins, who confidently asserted in an interview that evolution has been observed, but then added, it's just that it hasn't been observed while it's happening. Thank you.